Henry Smith.
Mr Deputy Speaker, thank you very much indeed for this opportunity to speak in what I think is an extremely timely and important debate. We are all very privileged as members of this House to have the opportunity to contribute, to be able to have our say. And I'm very conscious of that every time I walk through those doors, that there are, in my constituency, about 100,000 people who I am seeking to represent. I was very struck a few speeches ago by comments, and she's left her place in the chamber, made by the Honourable Lady, the member for Wirral South, when in her concluding remarks she spoke about giving dignity back to our constituents. I can think of no greater way to give dignity back to our constituents up and down the United Kingdom than to give them a say on our future relationship with the European Union, because the influence of the European Union has dominated every aspect increasingly over the last 4 decades of our national life. On the 1st of January 1973, I don't remember it, I was only 3 years old, we joined what was then referred to as the Common Market, or the EEC, the European Economic Community. When I was just over 6 years old, we had that confirmed in a referendum when most people thought that they were voting in favour of a common market, a customs union, a free trade area, something that I think is very important. At the time, people did refer to the small print of the Treaty of Rome, of ever closer union. But people believed generally that this was essentially an economic free trading agreement that was being joined. And over the ensuing decades, we have seen the European Economic Community develop into the European Community and into the European Union with the various treaties, such as the Single European Act, which has been referred to, of course, the Maastricht Treaty, the failed EU Constitution, which had to be rebranded, but was essentially presented and passed by the previous government as the Lisbon Treaty, which has seen this inexorable moving of power from this Parliament increasingly to a centralised European Union. I'm often struck by the fact that people refer to this as some sort of federal project. If only it were a little bit more federal with more subsidiarity. It is a central government project that we see increasingly having grown over the last 40 years from what is now the European Union, and it is right that the Prime Minister offers this country a chance on its future relationship with the European Union. And I think that the speech that we heard made last Wednesday will prove to be one of the most important speeches that a British Prime Minister will have made in the last half century. And I, for one, am certainly very grateful at the very clear direction, a direction that's much clearer, as the Foreign Secretary said earlier on, than certainly we hear from Her Majesty's opposition. I wish that the coalition partners in this government were also signed up to a referendum, because that's certainly, Mr Deputy Speaker, what their policy used to be. And I don't often quote the Deputy Prime Minister, but with your permission, Mr Deputy Speaker, I would like to now. And writing, I believe, in The Guardian on the 25th of February in 2008, he said, and I quote, "It's time we pulled out the thorn and healed the wound. Time for a debate politicians have been too cowardly to hold for 30 years. Time for a referendum on the big question. Do we want to be in or out? Nobody in Britain under the age of 51 has ever been asked that simple question. None of them were eligible to vote in that 1975 referendum. This includes half of all MPs. 2 generations have never had their say." And of course that was 5 years ago, so that's anyone over the age of 56, and we're now obviously into a new Parliament. I will indeed give way.
Thank you, Honourable Member. I just wondered if he could give us why he thinks the Deputy Prime Minister has changed his mind.
I wish I knew how the Deputy Prime Minister's mind worked. Mr. Deputy Speaker, you are quite right in ruling out the word as unparliamentary if I were to use the word hypocrisy in this chamber. And I would never use the word hypocrisy in this chamber to refer to another honourable or right honourable member. But I do think the Deputy Prime Minister is guilty of rank inconsistency when it comes to the position that his party is taking on the question of a referendum. This country has a unique position in the world, Mr. Deputy Speaker. We have global links like no other nation on Earth. And, of course, we have the proximity to the European continent as well. This nation's success has been rooted in being a free trading nation that seeks links and cooperation with the world. Our best opportunity for the future, as it has been in the past, is by being a conduit, by being a bridge between the world, utilising those unique links with our proximity to the European continent. Now, I will indeed give
the honourable history lesson, but the foundation of the British Empire was actually on protectionism. I think it was only until the repeal of the Corn Laws we actually had very restrictive markets for our goods.
Well, I was hoping to be able to speak yesterday where I was going to quote the Reform Act of 1831 and the sweeping away of the rotten boroughs. Of course, my apologies, and I'm going to refrain, Mr. Deputy Speaker, from using dates anymore in this submission. But our history is based on free trade, and our future, because I believe in talking about our future, needs to be, I will indeed give it.
Does my honourable friend accept that there is a serious problem if the free trading arrangements that he and I and many others want was in any way to be obstructed by the exclusive competence of the European Union in overlaying the question of whether or not we could trade freely, for example, with all those members of the Commonwealth and emerging markets?
The honourable member for Stone is absolutely correct. Of course, it is an EU competence to negotiate free trade agreements, and if we were to have that competence back as a sovereign parliament, as a sovereign nation, then we would be free to forge those free trade agreements once again. And I'm very struck by a Central European country, a multilingual Central European country that is free of the European Union but has free trade agreements with the European Union and indeed the rest of the world, and that of course is the nation of Switzerland. It is perfectly possible for us to maintain cooperation and free trading with Europe and indeed extend that to the rest of the world. I will give way on that point.
Would he note that indeed Switzerland can trade into the European single market by agreement, but of course it has to comply, particularly in the area that I shadow for the Labour Party in terms of food and farming. It has to comply with the highest EU standards or not export into it. It doesn't have any say in the rules, however.
That is the same as World Free Trade Agreements as well, and it is high time that we gave the British people back the ability to determine how their relationship with Europe and the rest of the world should go forward so that we can have greater free trade on a global basis for greater prosperity and to bring back democracy. And I congratulate my right honourable friend, the Prime Minister, for delivering that promise.